All right, welcome back to Collectibles.com Unscripted. We are here today with Frank, also known as Grailmonster, and he has some of the most amazing collectibles that we have pretty much ever seen, and we can't wait to tell you guys all about it. So, Frank, how you doing?
Good. How about you guys?
Oh, we can't complain. We hear you're out in LA. It's a little toasty.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's like a 108-degree average the past few days. It's pretty crazy out here. Yeah.
Wow. And I thought 90 degrees in South Florida was bad right now.
No, but Florida has the humidity though. I would take 110 with no humidity than 90 with humidity, man.
No, that's true. I've been to Vegas in that type of heat, so that totally makes sense.
So they call you the Grail Monster. Why is that your name?
Well, I called myself that, and I kind of regret doing it because it's just goofy. Yeah, I don't know. I had to come up with an Instagram handle. I didn't have Instagram until about a year and a half ago, and I just came up with a random handle, and it kind of stuck. And I kind of wish I could change it, to be honest with you, but it is what it is.
So it sounds like you collect Holy Grails, but we'll get into that in a minute. So how did you kind of get started with collecting? Like, what was the first thing that kind of gave you a taste?
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I used to go to a flea market on Long Island where I grew up, and just watch people trade Pokemon cards, like in the early 2000s and late like 90s. And then I just, got into that from an early age. Stopped collecting Pokemon in like 2001, like right after the Neo set came out. And then didn't start getting back into it until like Funko Pops a couple of years ago. And then that culminated in me buying the golden ticket for, I think it was $100,000, which was like, I guess, like a big thing in that hobby. And then one thing led to another, and I got back into TCG with One Piece and Lorcana, doing some manga grading and collecting now, and yeah, just kind of a little bit of everything. I have some video games as well, just very specific titles in video games, like a lot of Zelda stuff. I have a Mario and Pokemon Grail in video games as well. But generally speaking, it's mainly One Piece, Lorcana, and some manga for the most part.
When you define a Grail that you want to go after, what are the sort of criteria do you look for? Like, what is something that paints a target on an item for you that kind of says, I have to go after it?
Yeah, it's tough. Just things that I genuinely like and enjoy. So, and also scarcity. Like, I really like things. I like hunting things, and yeah, so scarcity, condition, and just a general passion for something, I have like certain OCD tendencies when it comes to condition as well. So like I literally like won't eat a piece of pizza if it's like not cut in like a specific triangle. Like literally it's like I'm very specific almost to an OCD standpoint when it comes to condition. So that's a big part of things too. But yeah, scarcity and just a general passion for something is really all it takes for the most part. And I enjoy hunting things that have stories. Like there's certain pieces that just have like cultural stories, like in certain hobbies, Like in Funko, the Clockwork Orange has like a really elaborate story and a good history. So like I was drawn to that. Just those kinds of things in general.
So we got into how long you've been collecting. What was your first Grail that you did obtain?
I pulled the base set Charizard in, I think, 1999, English. That was the first time I was like stoked about like owning something, and I still have it. It's like sitting on the shelf over there. It's not graded either. I still have it in like the original like case I put it in when I was like 13. So that was the first time I was like mesmerized by like a collectible. And then my dad got me a Joe Montana rookie card for my birthday. So those two things were like the things that set me on the path of collecting for the most part.
I love that. So you started young, and here you are. That's great.
It's always the Charizards. I ripped a Blaine's first ed Charizard back in the day, and my name is Blaine, so kind of a big deal for me.
So what made you decide? I think we talked about it a little bit, but what made you decide to go after Grails?
There's just a certain allure about the history of a lot of Grails. Like in the case of Charizard, it was just like, I was always a Charmander guy, like in Pokemon Red and Blue, so, Charizard was like the peak, of Pokemon for me growing up. So it was just like, for me, it was like a nostalgic story, and same thing with video games. Like, I mean, I have a Zelda tattoo on my wrist, so for me, like I grew up like a diehard Zelda fan. Ocarina of Time changed my life. Like I get how Harry Potter changed some people's lives and Star Wars. Like for me, it was Zelda. So growing up, I played Zelda nonstop. So now being able to have some of like the rarest, best conditioned Zelda games that are still sealed is like, it just strikes a chord with me that I can't even describe. It's not like a tangible thing. It's like, it's just, I'm drawn to that, you know? And there's certain pieces that just grab me. Like as soon as I see them, I'm like I need that. Like it strikes a chord somehow. I can't even tangibly explain it, to be honest with you.
You see that piece and it's like, it's an impulse buy, but it's on another level, you know? So what defines a Grail for you?
I think like a lot of people try to put a value on that. Like, you know, past $1,000, it's a Grail. For me, I would just say anything that anybody loves a lot. Like, yeah, to me, that would be a Grail. Like something that you just get that feeling from when you hold it, you know? I don't think it's necessarily a value thing. I think value can play into it. Like there's no secret. Like if you have a Mickey Mantle rookie card in a PSA 9 or whatever, that's like, from a value standpoint, there's no one that would argue that that's not a Grail. But generally speaking, I think it's more of a passion and love thing, for the most part, at least.
That's cool, because I think a lot of people looking out, you know, who just see the value on it would think it's, you know, kind of all about the money, but clearly it's pretty about the passion for you.
And don't get me wrong, I think like I said, I'm not a Magic the Gathering guy at all. But if I had a really high graded Alpha Black Lotus, I'd be stoked, and I would consider it a Grail just based on value, probably. So I mean, I do think, you know, that's a big part of things. But for me personally, it's like there has to be a passion behind it as well. Like I don't imagine myself ever really throwing down on like an Alpha Black Lotus because I just don't have the passion for it. But if I stumbled upon one, I'd be stoked, and I would consider it a Grail for sure.
Speaking of stumbling upon a Grail, what was your best find?
I had an estate lawyer hit me up. He found a sealed Super Mario original NES I think in an attic of a dead client. And then I graded that, and I got a 9.6A, which is a pretty good grade. So that was kind of crazy to me. Yeah, that was kind of an interesting buy. Trying to think what else. That's an exceptional one just because it was weird, and it kind of told me that like Grails of that degree are still out there and can be found, you know? So that one was exceptional. And also, there was a sealed Zelda NES that hit eBay, which isn't like, finding it on eBay is not as cool as finding it like in a private way. But yeah, I mean, those two instances kind of told me like, oh wow, like there's still things that can be found and hunted out there that you would think wouldn't be able to be. So those two things in particular really, you know, stuck with me.
Yeah, and speaking of like, you know, like those secondary sites and stuff that you find, like sometimes people do list things, you know, on these marketplaces, and you do find these things for stupid cheap, and you're like, is this legit or not? And sometimes it really is, and you're like, wow, I just stumbled upon that and nobody else saw it like first. Like that's nuts.
And you know, almost every instance where I've bought something in that way, the community almost always, without fail, says it's fake, don't buy it. Like every time. So it's like, for me, it's like maybe I'm more of a I mean, there's an argument for me having a gambling problem. I don't drink at all. I don't have a lot of demons, but I like to gamble. So like for me, it's like, you know, I'm like, okay, like if there's even I don't know, if you know, especially like on eBay, for instance, it's like I know I'm protected as a buyer for the most part if something's counterfeit, you know. So it's like, what's really the risk? And for me, it's just, I see it as an opportunity to get something for cheaper. Like if the entire community is like, this is fake, don't buy it, and I'm protected if it is fake, then I'm just getting it for cheaper than if the community accepted it, you know. So I like when people are telling me not to buy something because it's usually cheaper then.
So obviously your collection has quite a few high value type items. How many items do you have in your collection, and do you still go after like normal, you know, price things just to have them, like modern video games, things like that, or is it really only about the ultra high end stuff?
The ultra high end stuff tends to be the stuff that gives me a nostalgic feeling, you know. So I tend to just hunt the stuff that gives me the best feeling, and that typically is the nostalgic stuff, which typically is more expensive than modern stuff. So it's kind of just like, I don't hunt high value stuff because it's high valued. It's just that gives me the best feeling from a nostalgic standpoint, and that usually goes hand in hand with value, you know. How many pieces do I have? I don't even know, man. Like, are we counting each card as a piece, I guess?
Just a ballpark, I would say, is probably
not that many. Maybe I would say somewhere between probably maybe 200 total pieces, including card, like each individual card, which isn't that many, like in the grand scheme of things, you know.
Me and Blaine are like 200. Or like, oh yeah, no, that's not that much.
Some of the things I'm hunting take a long time to like I'm extremely picky about condition. So it's like, it's not like I can just go to like Hot Topic or like whatever and get like a Funko Pop. It's like, I'm like hunting, it's like a 12 piece where there's like 2 that are in acceptable condition or like whatever it is. So it's like, it takes me a longer time to find them sometimes. So like, you know, it's more of like it's hard to collect in abundance when those are the kind of pieces you're hunting, you know.
Yeah, but all of yours are heavy hitters, so I think they more than pull their own weight.
Most of them are, yeah. Most of them are, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the cheapest, the lowest value piece that I have is probably maybe $1,000. I think, like something like that. Yeah.
So obviously, I'm sure you get this question a bit. What kind of occupation do you work in? Like, what sort of field?
Marketing, SEO, and design. I also just got into crypto for the first time in April, and it's been a whirlwind. Yeah, so crypto is the new thing that I'm kind of in. It's a weird crypto. It's not like, I'm not just buying like, you know, BTC and sitting on it. It's like I'm kind of investing into like weird crypto technologies. But yeah, so that's kind of everything. So collecting, crypto, and marketing, SEO, and design. I've been doing that since 2007, I think now. So it's like almost 20 years of doing that. But and that was why I moved out to LA, because I'm from New York. I moved out to LA to kind of, I was working for a really boutique, shitty firm in New York City doing marketing, and then I moved out here and started my own thing. And COVID was actually an interesting time for me in my career, because I had to transition and pivot entirely from a career standpoint. Still doing marketing, but just kind of pivoting away from what I was doing and what field I was marketing to like a whole new sector of marketing. So, but yeah. I mean, COVID was so weird, such a weird time for me in my career. But it's, you know, it's worked out. It's just, you know, it's such a weird time.
We got to ask you a little bit of a hot take. Which has a better collectors community, LA or New York?
Probably LA, because of Comic-Con and some of the things out here. I think the nicer weather plays into more conventions and just more activity, like swap meets, outdoor, like flea markets and things like that. So in New York, it's tough. It's tough to find a parking lot to have a convention or like a flea market in New York. You know, out here it's a little bit more spread out. It just plays into, you know, the weather and Comic-Con, all that stuff, you know, plays into the collecting community better than New York.
Yeah, and speaking of weather, you know, these collectibles that you have, and you talked about your heat wave, how does that, you know, affect your collectibles?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff I have is pretty temperature specific. So like I have a storage facility for a lot of the higher end stuff I have, and it's like temperature controlled and all that stuff. But yeah, dude, like when it gets hot, like the past few days, and like, you know, I was without AC for a few days because I was dealing with a problem. Yeah, it gets scary, like especially with Funko Pops where like the boxes can like the glue kind of melts on them, you know. And even some of the manga I have, like, you know, it was 95 degrees in my house the other day. So it was like, you know, it starts to make me worry about pages kind of, you know, warping and stuff like that. So yeah, dude, it can get scary. But yeah, no, and generally speaking, it's like I keep everything in temperature controlled environments for the most part.
So with storing them, I mean, you mentioned you have like a storage facility or unit. What percentage do you keep there? I mean, like, do you keep a lot of things displayed in your home and like?
Not a lot of stuff is displayed in my home. Here, I'll show you what's displayed in my home real quick here. So like I have literally like this small shelf of stuff, which is like Joe Montana card, base set Pokemon stuff, and then I have Gyarados skateboard, Lorcana D23 set, 2 Funko Pops, and that's literally everything I have. And then I have an area over here where like it's like a prep station where I prep all my cards and my manga and everything else, with Final Fantasy IX posters, and a little Pikachu there. But yeah, aside from that stuff, I mean, everything else is in storage. Like, I mean, I put everything in storage for the most part.
Gotcha. Yeah, I saw your Squishmallow making a cameo there. I got my Dragonite over my corner here. So.
Hell yeah, I love Dragonite, dude. Dragonite's awesome. But yeah, for the most part, I don't have stuff laying around. I am going to Dallas tomorrow for the One Piece finals. and I'm probably bringing a lot of my stuff there. I'm bringing some of my high graded manga, and I think some of my One Piece cards. I think I'm going to the Beckett office, and I think they wanted to do a video out there or something. So I might bring some of that stuff. But generally speaking, I don't have, anything really laying around my house. It's all in storage for the most part.
And then obviously I assume everything is insured. Do you just have it through your normal like policyholder, or do you have it through like a separate thing? Because we always have, we've had a couple insurers on the channel, so that's why I always ask about that, because it's kind of.
Yeah, insurance is interesting. I'm not going to say if my stuff is insured or not, or to what degree, but I will say that, insurance companies make money by charging an amount that is beyond the rate at which you're going to lose things in general. So over the long run, it's a negative EV proposition to insure stuff over the long run. But, that's not to say I don't have anything insured. But yeah, I just, generally speaking, like the concept of insurance, like I don't subscribe to it for the most part. I also, like, this sounds crazy, I also don't subscribe, generally speaking, to paying with PayPal goods and services for the same reason. Like, for me, if I trust someone to steal something from me less than 3.5% of the time, then I'm saving money by not paying goods and services. So, like, for me, it's like just EV crunches of like, just like math of like, most insured things are bad for the owner in the long run financially. So, yeah, I mean, maybe that's a stupid take, but that's just like my opinion for the most part.
I mean, we asked your take on LA versus New York. I mean, we're, I don't think there's anything too crazy that we can touch on. All right, we can go to some happier stuff here. What's your favorite collecting memory? Just your happiest memory when you think about collecting things?
Seeing someone buy first edition Shadowless Charizard in the flea market when I was 12 for $40 and only having $27 on me and having to turn it down. And that sounds sad. It's not sad. It's happy because it kind of put me on a path of. I don't have a first edition Shadowless Charizard, by the way. That is something I will have someday, like definitively. That's sort of like, I told myself I would buy that card when I was done actively collecting. Like, that will be like how I end my collecting. So that was how it started, though. Like, that started me on the path. That particular instance of watching that transaction started me on the path of collecting, and also started me on the path of showcasing some of my stuff and like being really transparent about my transactions. Because me watching that transaction got me started in collecting. So it's like, if I could be that for somebody else, that's kind of cool, So even though it was like sad I missed that on the card, it's like, in retrospect, it was like the best thing that I've ever seen.
So have you become an influencer kind of like to these people? Like, what do you think?
Nah, dude, I hope not. Like, nah, that's not the goal. I mean, honestly, man, the goal is just, I feel like the rarest pieces on the planet are underexposed. I feel like if you want to buy a common card or a common Funko Pop, you can go on PPG or go on TCG Player or eBay and see the previous comps of how much it sold for, when it sold. You can see a graph of the market on TCG Player. Like, it's like you can see data on those cards and those pieces. The rarest pieces no one gets to see. No one gets to see those transactions. No one gets to see how much they sold for, when they sold. So my goal is just to expose those things to a degree of interesting people, So for me, like, I get accused all the time of like, pumping the market or whatever. And I think those are valid criticisms. I don't blame people for saying that. But for me, my goal isn't to pump the market. It's just to expose some of those sales. If that increases the market inherently, then so be it. But, those transactions happened. For me, hiding those transactions and not exposing them is more manipulation of the market than me exposing them, Like, if I were to hit up TCG Player and tell them, hey, take down this data on these sales, that would be more manipulation than them exposing the sales. So for me, it's like the same science. Like, if I know something sold, or if I sold something for a certain amount and I choose not to disclose it, for me, that's more of manipulation than exposing it. So either way, it's like, everything you do in those ways is somehow affecting the market. And for me, I just, I think transparency should always be something that's prioritized. So, for me, that's the goal. I'm not trying to influence anyone or influence a market or pump a market. I'm just trying to show people the data on some of the highest sales that they can't find anywhere else. And if that happens to, increase a market or decrease it, then that's just a byproduct of information,
Well, I mean, objectively, the items did change hands at that price. So like that is a data point, even if it's hard
It's sold at that price. The transaction happened. Me hiding the transaction, to me, is more of manipulation than simply being open about it. The problem, I mean, and it's a problem for me too. Like, I'm still actively hunting stuff. Like, I just, I bought a Naruto 9.8 manga for 20 grand recently. If I don't expose that sale as someone who's still buying stuff, it would be cheaper for me. Like I'm costing myself money by exposing that sale as someone who's still buying stuff. If I kept that sale a secret and bought stuff and then exposed that sale, to me, that would be worse. So it's like, so when people say that I'm manipulating the market upward or whatever, it's like I'm doing that for myself too. Like, I'm costing myself money by exposing those sales. But for me, transparency is important. And I'd rather pay more for a piece, because of me, promoting something previously and being transparent than the contrary. So, that's just my opinion on it. And I understand the criticism, but yeah, it's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. That's really cool, and that's really genuine of you to do that, because like you said, there are people out there that will not do that, that will not put that out there, and that's huge.
Yeah, I just, I am not the type, there's a lot of collectors that treat their rarest stuff like CIA documents. Like, for me, that's not how I am. Like, I'm trying to, I want people to experience the hunt and the transaction with me. Like, I want them to go through that process with me. To me, that's fun. I'm not thinking about the market when I do it. I'm literally just trying to bring people along for the ride. But like I said, I do understand the criticism on the surface. Like, I totally get it.
Well, you definitely embody put your money where your mouth is.
And I don't sell stuff very much, by the way. I'm like massively in the red. If you were to like value, like, I hold almost everything. So, I don't, I'm not just pumping and dumping. It's one thing to like pump up the price of something and then dump it on everybody. I've never done that, So like, I'm in the trenches with everybody else. Like, I'm not just turning, just flipping for profit, like, very often at all.
Well, speaking about being in the trenches, what item is in your crosshairs next? What's the next Grail you have potentially that you're setting your eyes on?
So the Poncho Pikachus are something that I'm really interested in, even though I'm not a Pokemon collector. I think those are really cool. Something about those I'm just drawn to. There's some One Piece stuff. I think I'm going to potentially start collecting the mangas in Black Label, which is going to be a really big undertaking. And then any high-graded manga, like BGS graded manga in general. Like I got the Naruto recently. I'm definitely hunting some other ones like Bleach, Full Metal Alchemist, which is my favorite anime. I would love any of those. So yeah, pretty much any high-graded manga that I love. Demon Slayer, Attack on Titan. Berserk is one that I've been hunting. It's really hard to find. So just stuff like that.
Like, do you start like, hey, there's a brand new like manga coming out and it might be like the next big thing. Do you start now or do you wait a little bit?
No, I mean, I'm too nostalgic, man. Like, there's too much for me to focus on from a nostalgia standpoint. Like that stuff always takes priority. So those hunts take a long time, so I don't really get to stuff until it's nostalgic. So maybe like JJK, for instance, which is a newer, manga and anime. It's like maybe in 10 years I'll hunt that one, and I think Demon Slayer is newer too, but like, I'm just so in love with that anime, and I think the animation is like, it blows me away every episode. So that's one that's an exception. Like, I'm hunting that one actively just because I'm like, I just finished the last season and I'm super, super blown away by that last episode. Dude, it was, I thought the season was okay. The last episode was awesome. So I'm actively hunting that right now, just because I'm like super passionate about it. But generally speaking, it's like I usually wait until stuff like strikes a nostalgic chord with me before I start hunting it.
Okay, yeah, Demon Slayer was actually, as soon as I finished the first season of the anime, I completely read the whole manga, as it came out.
Yeah, I get torn about that because like I'm more of a visual like TV person as opposed to reading. So for me, it's like I try not to spoil stuff if I really like something. So it's like conflicting in some of those ways. But yeah, I don't know how it ends, and like I'm trying to avoid knowing how it ends.
My lips are sealed, man. No, it's great. It's fantastic. You know, a lot of people are so off-putting of some endings of these anime and these manga and everything. And it's just like enjoy it for what it is and what you went through to get to the end too. You know, you don't have to. Oh, that ending was terrible. Like My Hero Academia ended, and people were like, "I hate this ending so much. Like, why would he? Why did he waste all this?" It's like, no. Take the time. Remember the times. You know, remember those moments and stuff. Don't.
Dude, people were outraged. I haven't seen it. I'm probably 2 or 3 seasons behind on it, dude, but people were outraged. I was actively trying hard not to have it spoiled because people were so outraged that they were just talking about the ending openly, and I was like, shit, like, like I'm going to spoil this. But yeah, I mean, I'd never seen, there was a community that was like seriously outraged about it, and it's kind of making me not as excited to watch it, to be honest with you, but I mean, we'll see what happens.
So with talking about this, I got into a debate the other day online, so I have to ask you, is there any ending to One Piece that's not going to piss people off, in your opinion?
No. I mean, I can imagine them doing something corny, like the One Piece is actually our friendship and relationships or something, like, and I just like, there's just no scenario where I think people are going to be happy, because it's just, yeah, I keep thinking about like Pulp Fiction, when they open up the suitcase and it's like you don't ever see what's inside of it, and it's just like that gold like flash on everyone's face. Like I can imagine it being like that. I mean, like no matter how it's done, it's going to piss people off probably. Yeah, I just think there's no way there's not going to be like a Seinfeld Sopranos outrage at the end of it. Like there's just no scenario where it's not going to happen.
Look, man, all I'm saying is if One Piece just cuts to black and we don't find out what happens, I might be able to understand some rioting. That's all.
Yeah, dude, keeping it open-ended, like just having it end tomorrow might be a better alternative than like how it's inevitably going to piss everybody off, So I don't know, but I'm actually still catching up on One Piece. I'm not caught up on that at all either. So there's a lot of things I have to catch up on. So it's, we'll see what happens with it.
The watch list is never ending.
And I'm like a weird guy that I like watching the dub, like the English dub. I don't like, because I work a lot while it's on, so I can't read like while I'm working. So it's like I always end up having to wait for like the dub to come out, and then by that point, like everyone's already past the season and talking about it, and I'm kind of sick of reading about it. So then I'm just like, okay, like I'll wait until all the hype dies down to like, to watch it.
That may have been the most cathartic thing I have ever heard in my life, because I have the same exact feeling where I usually watch a lot of dub because I'm usually working while I'm watching TV, and finally hearing somebody else not like just, berate the dub into oblivion was just.
No, I mean, I understand the criticism because it's, you're not watching it in the form it was meant to be watched by the Japanese writers and whatever. And like, I get that criticism, but like, I'd rather experience it like at all than not, because I literally can't just sit in front of a TV and read the entire time because I'm usually like passively watching it, so it is what it is. Like, but I understand the criticism, but like, whatever,
All right, well, getting back to some of the items that you have, obviously you mentioned your next big item, that you're looking after is going to be like the Pikachus and some of the mangas, things like that. What is one holy grail that is out there other than the first Ed Charizards that you really would like to have, or is kind of your own personal holy grail that maybe is, not available just yet, or maybe you haven't gotten yet, something like that?
One that I do have is the 9.8 A++ Ocarina of Time. I'll never top that. Another one that I don't have would probably be a first print NES Zelda in the highest grade. I don't know if I'll ever get that, but that's one that I really want. I'm trying to think what else. I think that would be the top for me. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'd like to have a Pikachu illustrator. That would be cool. The Pikachu trophy cards, like the very first trophy cards, the Japanese ones, I think they're all PSA 9s. I don't think there's a 10 of any of those, but like those 3, gold, silver, bronze, would be really, really cool. So yeah, that's pretty much it though. I mean, those 3 trophy cards and the NES Zelda in the highest grade. Also, Majora's Mask in the highest grade, a 9.8 A++ would be really good too. Only one of those exists though. There's only one. So, I'd like to have the second one. I'm going to have the second one at some point.
There you go. I love it. I'm going to. Not I'd like. I'm going to. I love the determination. Hey, one of your clients will find it in the office or something of somebody.
I think the way to go about it is probably to buy a VGA high graded one and then cross it. That's probably the way to go about it. But it's a risky thing. If the cross is bad, then you're in a bad spot.
How do you like keep track of like all of that stuff?
I get hit up a lot on Instagram, man. Like I get hit up all the time um, by like people who have really weird stuff or know someone that does. So a lot of it finds me actually. Yeah, so that makes things easier sometimes, but some stuff is impossible. Like I have no idea where that Majora's Mask is. Like I have no clue who has the 9.8 A++. I have no idea. I don't have any idea who has the highest graded NES Zelda first print either. So yeah, and the trophy cards, the Pikachu trophy cards, I have no idea who has those. So it's some of that stuff takes a little bit of digging around, which I enjoy. I enjoy that. I enjoy hunting that kind of stuff. But yeah, sometimes it can be super time consuming. There are some pieces in Funko that I gave up on that like I straight up stopped hunting because it was hard to find them, and it was like not worth it at a certain point.
What were they? Curious.
The Clockwork Orange Glow in good condition was a really tough one. Some of the Freddy 12 pieces were tough because one guy has, I think, like 70% of them. So the Freddy 12 pieces aren't 12 pieces. They're really like 3 or 4 because one guy has most of them. Some guy in the UK who I'm not going to name. His name is Mark, but yeah. But no, he's a really good guy. But yeah, it's like he makes it difficult to hunt those pieces.
The Frenum guy too. Then.
Yeah, Juno. Yeah, I refuse to play ball with that thing. I'll never. I had a Frenum briefly. I had it for a day and then I sold it. I just couldn't get behind it. But yeah, the Blueberry Glow, which is a 24 piece, is really hard to find. I can only find like 6 or 7 of the 24, and none of them were in great condition. So yeah, there's some Funko pieces that are really hard to find, just because no one thought to collect those or to hold them and keep them in good shape, and a lot of people collected them out of box like you. So yeah, so back then, the box condition didn't matter, so it's hard to find them in good condition now.
So you're in the box guy then?
I am for sure. Yeah. It depends. I mean, like I've taken my golden tickets out of the box. I've taken the Clockwork out of the box. I don't let them sit out of the box like actively, but like when I had them. But I still prefer them to be in box for sure.
Going off the golden ticket, you talked about stories and everything. What was the story behind that? Like, how did you find that? How did you obtain that? The sale, the negotiation. How did that all work out?
I was very specific about. I didn't just want the golden ticket. I wanted the golden ticket with the ticket, the actual paper ticket that it came with, and only 4 of the 10 of those had the paper tickets with them. And 3 of them were unable to be found. So really, there was only 1 that had the ticket. And this guy, this guy who lived in LA owned it, and everyone knew he owned it. And I wanted that piece, and I pretty much had no ceiling as to how much I would have spent on it for the most part. I just wanted it really badly. And he told me $100,000, and he wouldn't budge from it. And it took me a couple days. I offered him, I think, 80 or 75. He said no, 100. I waited a couple more days. And I said, all right, let's do it. And that was it. Yeah.
Most expensive pop ever sold. That's until you decide to sell it.
It's not anymore. Mine isn't the most expensive transaction anymore.
Really?
There is a bigger one that no one knows about. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, you heard it here first. We won't go into detail.
Well, actually, no. Well, I should say mine's the 3rd biggest because I sold that for $210,000. And then there's someone else that bought a golden ticket for more than that after mine. So, but yeah, so so mine's the 3rd biggest transaction at this point, I think. But yeah, I mean, at the time, I don't know. I mean, $100,000 is a lot of money. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say it's not. But in the realm of collectibles, when you talk about the rarest pieces in any hobby, I mean, the rarest sports card is 7 figures. The most expensive, the most valued Magic the Gathering card is 3 million. So it's like Pokemon is 5 million, whatever it is. So it's like, yeah, 100 grand's a lot, but when you're talking about like a one of one of like, it's like the absolute rarest of the rarest in a hobby. It's like 100 grand isn't crazy, like relative to other stuff. So for me, it's like it didn't seem like it was totally like insane, even though like I've been convinced or I've been told by multiple people that it is insane, but I never felt that way about that.
Got it. No, got it, man. No, and I get that, like what you said, like the relativity to the collectibles field and collecting, like.
Yeah, man. Like in Pokemon, $100,000 card is like that's like 35% of a first edition Charizard. Like, which, don't get me wrong, Pokemon as a market and hobby is much bigger than Funko. But there's also, I think, 150 or 130 or something first edition Charizards. There's one of these, So, yeah. So I don't know. It's my way of valuing things is different, and then others. If you value your time at hypothetically at $500 an hour, and something would take you 100 hours to hunt, you spent 50 grand in time and resources to hunt it. For me, it was like, I know who owns this piece. I don't have to spend days, hours, months, years to hunt it. Like, I'd rather pay more and save myself the time, because I don't have a lot of time. Like, I can afford to spend money more than I can afford to spend time right now. So for me, it just made sense. Like, it might not make sense for somebody else who has more time than money. Like, I totally get that. For me, it made sense. And like, that's how I value things a lot of the time. It's like, it's not just based on money. It's based on like how many resources, what work do I have to put aside to hunt this, and how much will that actually cost me relative to just spending X amount on something,
So you mentioned that, you collect so many different things already. You collect Funko, some Pokemon, manga, all that other stuff. You mentioned you're not huge into sports cards. Is there any other big collecting like category that you just have like no interest in, or just never really, sparked any desire in you for them?
Yeah, comic books. Yeah, I don't know why. I never was like a Marvel guy. Even the movies, like, I like the Avengers movies. Like, Endgame was awesome. Like, Guardians of the Galaxy is fun. I just never got into comics like in like a really like extreme way. I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know. And I also think like there's something that's not as fun about fully developed hobbies. Like, a lot of the stuff in those hobbies has been hunted and found and graded already. So for me, there's like I like grading stuff myself, generally speaking, creating something yourself, and like, that feeling of waiting for a grade to come back, is like really fun for me. So hobbies where like the rarest stuff is already graded and found, for the most part, it's just not as exciting for me. And that's just my opinion.
With manga being on the rise of, being graded, obviously, and stuff, what is your like criteria when you look at something? You're like, hey, I'm gonna get this graded. Like, what are the things to look out for with that?
Yeah, the condition's interesting because there's like sometimes a couple dozen pages or 100 pages to look at. It's so different than cards, and I'm still trying to get a feel for it in the scales. But yeah, anything. Just like anything else, just like no creasing, the least amount of dings as possible around the pages, especially with black or colored covers. Like Hunter has black covers, and those do not grade well. Any amount of wearing and tearing on the covers is like immediately visible. Same thing with Bleach. Those two grade really tough because the pages are black. My Hero has a silver cover, which doesn't grade very well either, even though it's a newer manga. So like, some of those things, like the colors of the pages really matter. Yeah, how white the pages are, all that stuff. There's so many nuances, and I'm still trying to get a feel for it, trying to get a feel for the scale. Yeah, and trying to also figure out how to prep them, because I think prepping is really important. Being able to like, take something from an 8.5 to a 9 just by prepping it the right way. I haven't gotten a complete feel for that stuff yet. I'm still trying to figure it out. So yeah, it's kind of a learning process, but I enjoy it. Like, I enjoy like a brand new kind of hobby that's like fun to navigate, like the scale and the grading element of it. It's really fun.
Blaine always loves to ask this one. If you had a house fire, what are you grabbing first?
The base set, the base Charizard, and that's like more. I mean, I have stuff that's significantly more value than that. I mean, my Lorcana set on the wall is probably worth at least 3 or 4 times what that card is, maybe even more, maybe 5 or 6 times. I mean, but yeah, that card, I think, because that was the first time I had pulled something and been like, that was when it clicked of like I want to collect shit like forever.
It's awesome you make the sentimental pick.
Because for me, it comes down to a regret, like an actual regret. Like if I lost that card, I would feel a regret that is more valuable than almost any amount of money. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, there's other stuff I would grab even before that, obviously, like more like family photos and things like that. But if we're talking collectibles, it would be that for sure. Yeah.
All right, so if you wanted to really impress somebody, what is the biggest show off piece in your collection? Like the make sure all the jaws hit the floor kind of.
Not buying anything and showing them the cash I spent on it instead. But no, I think from purely is it a fellow collector that I'm trying to impress?
You can do a fellow collector and then even a layman.
A layman, I would say it sounds ridiculous, but the gold Gyarados skateboard, it just looks awesome. I think that would be an impressive thing to show someone who doesn't collect, because everyone knows what a skateboard is, and it just looks awesome. Someone that does collect, I would say probably the Ocarina of Time 9.8 A++. Because to me, almost universally, that's the greatest video game ever made, and having the highest graded one in the world is, I think, pretty impressive.
All right, so the way we usually start to wrap these up, we have a rapid fire thing. I'm just going to ask you a quick bunch of questions. You have to pick kind of one or the other or give a quick answer. One of these I think I may already have the answer for based on some of the questions we had, so we'll see what happens. But all right, all-time favorite Pokemon?
Charizard.
All-time favorite anime?
Full Metal Alchemist.
Favorite Straw Hat?
Nami.
All right, who wins in a fight, Goku or Luffy?
Luffy.
All right, what character needs a Funko Pop ASAP that doesn't have one yet?
Mario and Luigi and everything Nintendo. Zelda, Link, yeah.
Be safe. All right, now here's the one that's going to be a little tricky. Who wins in a 4-way fight? Nicol Bolas from Magic, Charizard from Pokemon, Blue Eyes White Dragon from Yu-Gi-Oh, or Kaido from One Piece?
Kaido.
Well, even though he does love Charizard, you heard it here, Kaido is the OP, going to win in the fight no matter what, so there you go. But again, Frank, thank you so much for joining us today for our episode here. It was awesome talking to you and kind of hearing your insights and seeing all the cool things you have.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much.
Yeah, and guys, if you're watching on YouTube, please remember to subscribe and like the video and share it with anybody else you think would enjoy this kind of content. If you're listening to it anywhere else, go ahead and follow us to make sure you never miss any of our podcasts. That being said, guys, we are signing off this episode. Again, my name is Blaine. We're here with Ryan and Frank. And we will see you guys in the next podcast. Have a good one.